No budget, no techie, no problem. So if that's what you were hoping to see, you're here. Thank you for joining us from home if you're joining us. My name is Shelley Reed. I am the manager of the Legal Services National Technology Assistance Project. We provide technology education and assistance and training and resources for legal aid and nonprofit organizations across the country. And we're most known for our listserv. But I think that our webinars, toolkits, and other web resources are getting a bit of attention now, so that's great. I am going to, well, the name of our session reflects our goal for the session. We want to help you realize that there may be solutions to your problems that don't require a big tech budget or a programmer. In the world of the future that we dreamed about years ago, we're finally seeing in today's tech marketplace solutions that can help us eliminate many of our friction points. So I'm going to let my co-presenters introduce themselves and we'll get started.
Hey, good morning. My name's David Gray. I'm the business project manager at Bay Area Legal Services in Tampa, Florida. We're a civil legal aid organization serving the greater Tampa Bay area, but we also run 3 statewide helplines for seniors, veterans, and victims of disaster. I'm also the creator of A to J Jobs, a free job board for access to justice careers, and I'll go through a little bit of that later as an example.
Morning, everyone. My name is Mauricio Duarte. I'm the Chief Operating Officer with A2J Tech. We are a digital legal technology agency, and we have helped a few of you with some of your projects, technology innovation projects. And I'm just excited to be here.
So in today's session, we'll be clarifying what we are calling no-code and low-code tech. We'll cover why to use this tech and show some more show some examples of how this tech can be used. We'll then have time for some questions and provide some resources for you to take home. So I want to do, by a show of hands, how familiar are you with no code or low tech? If you've heard of it before, but don't have any experience. Okay, how about if you have experience and you use it all the time? Okay, perfect. And what about if you have never heard it before and you don't know what I'm talking about? Great, so we have a good mix in the room. So let's start by defining what low code and no code tools are. No-code tools let people like me, who are not coders, build tools without having to learn how to code. We use software and websites, and they're kind of click and drag, and you are able to develop something. Low-code tools are a bridge between no-code tools and developers who can code everything. And they can be used by lay people, but they can also be used by developers to speed up their process. Let's think about it like your grandma's lasagna. Your grandma is the coder in this example. She knows exactly what needs to go in that lasagna. She might share the recipe with you, but she's not going to give you everything, so hers is always better. So now the no-code tool would be yourself. You know, you go to the grocery store, you can buy the sauce off the shelf. It's already mixed. You don't have to know the recipe. You can buy the pasta in the refrigerator section. And then you go home, you layer it in the pan, and you've created lasagna without having to know exactly what went into it. The low-code tool is someone who knows how to make the sauce, they know how to make the pasta, but they choose to, on occasion, take the shortcut so that they can spend more time on making cheesecake instead. So does that help everybody understand it a little bit? Perfect. So we can use these no-code and low-code tools in business process automation and many other ways. But here today, I imagine all of us are trying to solve problems with what's going on in your work. So we do these things for speed and efficiency. We do it for accessibility. We do it for cost savings. And we want rapid prototyping. You know, all of these things go in together to help us make a better solution. We can also do integration and automation, where we take one system and we want them to speak to another system so that we don't have to manually move that information. So that's another way that these tools are being used. And these tools empower citizen developers like you, like myself, who know that there should be a solution out there, but we might not have the budget to pay for someone to do it. And we also have to remember that sometimes, as I said in the beginning, solutions might be a very simple thing. We don't necessarily need a TIG grant to do it with the tools that are available now. So Mauricio is going to talk to us about the current tools, or some of the current tools on the market.
Yeah, thank you, Shelly. So when I start talking about no-code tools, which is a very, I'd say, topic close to my heart, because that's the reason why I left my previous role as an attorney. I used to practice international arbitration. If any knows what that world is pretty draining. So my wife told me one time, hey, you need to find something that it makes you happy again. So when that happened, I was like, I don't know what I could do. So I started playing around with maybe technology, maybe some other areas of dispute resolution that I saw back then. But how I came in legal technology was that I remember I was sitting on my desk and it would be so cool to build a small prototype, like a garage project. Can I do it? Because it was that eternal debate of an attorney should program in order to go into legal tech, or the new future generation of attorneys should program. But in my mind, it's like, no, we attorneys still have a core set of skills that allow us to think in a logical way. How can I apply that into technology without the need of spending 4 years of college again to learn the basics of computer science? So I remember that I was working on this notion of building a portal for my clients in my practice. And I said, how can I do this? And this was back in 2016 that I started searching, how can I build a portal? And no-code was just starting by then. It wasn't a big movement like it is right now. In fact, there are a few articles from Forbes that show how much the economy has grown only by no-code startups in the ecosystem. So I remember when I sat down, I found a platform that is non-existent right now, but still, I was able to build a whole portal for my clients in order to access their cases, their documents, what was the status of each of the cases that we were looking in the office. And this is something that the IT department of the law firm was never able to figure out. I was able to figure out with maybe 4 weekends under my belt, spending some time by myself, and that's when I saw basically I have now a superpower. I now have the perfect excuse to go into legal technology, and that's when I decided to move away from traditional legal practice. But that's when I realized that notion that a lawyer has to know how to code or program is false. Is it going to help you? Yes, like anything else. I have colleagues that know finance, and they are, let's say, very good at understanding intersections between finance and law. But now with no code, you can also do that in the technology space. You can understand how to build comprehensive apps, powerful solutions with no-code technologies. So when we talk about what are some of the solutions that are out there in the market, I always tell individuals, hey, look outside of just legal. Look on the other verticals. Look at what are no-code tools that are being used on project management, website building, portal building. It's not only on the legal. In fact, I would probably argue that the vertical of legal no-code tools is very minimal. Outside of that, in the mainstream tech world, you're going to find thousands of no-code solutions. So we can go to the next slide, just a few examples of some of the tools that I use that are outside of the legal vertical. I know that yesterday, to those that attended our affinity discussion, heard Airtable. I see one familiar face that was talking about one of the projects that she has built on Airtable. I'm probably a groupie of Airtable. I always have told the CEO of the company, if I ever move away from A2J Tech, is because Airtable hired me, and maybe as a spokesperson of Airtable. That's the only reason why. Because even to my former partner, I told him, hey, when I'm gone, use this for other things, and he now uses it, and we still keep in touch. He keeps track of birthdays, of expenses, of everything on Airtable, not even in their case management system. So Airtable, I would say, for those that are not aware of what Airtable is, and if you have a computer or a cell phone, I invite you to go to airtable.com. But basically, it's a database, a very simple database. It looks like an Excel spreadsheet. And you would say, why do I need an Excel spreadsheet? I have Google Sheets or I have Excel. But the, let's say, value aspect of Airtable, and I'm going to talk about one of the use cases and case studies about Airtable, is that you can build apps on top of that. And many of the apps at the end of the day become database structures. How can data be connected within themselves? How can I connect a tab that has individuals with another tab that maybe has time entries? Again, creating those cross connections between data. And Airtable is one of those examples. But again, Airtable is not the only one, or there's even a low-code solution, an open source solution to Airtable that is called Baserow. We have used Baserow in those cases in which we say, hey, I cannot use Airtable because I cannot do all the configurations that I want to. Those that have used Airtable know that it has some limitations on certain things. So there's always alternatives and replacements for a technology that you want to use. On the other side, for instance, Hootsuite. If someone keeps track of the A2J Tech's social media, the only reason why our digital marketing is consistent is because we use Hootsuite. That is basically a hub to centralize all of your digital marketing. And I know that communication for legal aids become very important, newsletters, keeping up with your potential clients. So Hootsuite is a great alternative also in the social media marketing space. And you may think, oh, how can I use that for a legal aid or a nonprofit? I know for a fact, because I have met with some of you, that social media is one of the things that you want to get out there to improve your outreach, to get more clients, to show them new programs that you may have, to show them new potential services that they can apply for. The third big category that I have seen across helping legal services organizations and legal aid is workflow automation. Yesterday, someone threw around the concept of Zapier. And for those that do not know what Zapier is, it's basically a middleware that allows you to send or push data from different platforms. So for instance, I can send data from Gmail into my case management system, or I can send data from Airtable, using one example, into an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, and you can push and change data, even format data, how it looks on the other side. Now, it does come with a limitation that that technology has only a limited amount of triggers. So if you don't want to do an API connection or development, which I must admit, I cannot do by myself. I do have team members that are experts in that. But in those cases that one of the team members on API connections is unavailable, I'm going to say, hey, I can do it, but with a Zapier integration. Now, what does that show is I still have the superpower of a developer, yes, in a more limited capacity, but I can still do what the end goal of the project is, and that's sending data from one place to the other. And just to wrap up, and then now going into one of the use cases that I want to show you, to be respectful of time, is on email marketing. Many of you have seen probably MailChimp. That's one of the tools that I always mention. MailChimp is one very interesting case study on the tech industry. To those that do not know how MailChimp started, they started as a service company. They provided services for companies to draft their newsletters. And after becoming an expert in that area, they launched their own product. And now it's called MailChimp, that was acquired by Intuit, the same company that owns TurboTax. So MailChimp also started as something that someone would say, newsletters, what's the value behind newsletters? But it became into this multi-million-dollar company, now acquired by Intuit, because there's a lot of need for communication in the emails, in the newsletter space. So MailChimp, I know a few of you use it, others use Constant Contact, but again, Constant Contact is another form of using no-code solutions for communications. And the last one, that this is one of the more exciting ones, I think. When you see a website, you always think to yourself, oh, this looks so good, I could never build something like this. And I always thought to myself, I could never build a website. I cannot even, say, aesthetically put something beautiful in my living room. So how can I build a website? But that's when I started to find, again, no-code tools in the website space. such as Squarespace, Webflow, and there are multiple ones. Software, I know that David is going to talk about software a little bit. But Squarespace and Webflow, just to cite a few examples, gave me that ability to build something, and to my surprise, it was not an ugly website. It was a decent website. Now, is it perfect? Probably not. Probably someone that has had experience in website development for years can do a better job. But at least it gave me the empowerment to build something. And I think that's what no-code is providing, that empowerment that you can decide what I want to build, how can I build it, and if I do think it's a valuable result, how can I improve it over time? And that's the value of no-code. You're not being handicapped of using the excuse, I need a developer. Now with no-code, you can build it yourself. So with that overview, I'm going to talk about one case study, and I see one of the programs that helped me with that, Ashley Graham from Neighborhood Legal Services Program, and I cannot, let's say, explain how much time she invested on helping us developing this, and that's why I always get excited about speaking of no-code, because this solution was probably one of the more exhausting yet challenging solutions that we needed to build in no-code, and I'm going to explain a bit about that. And that was a solution using only 3 different platforms. One, Airtable, the second one using Zapier, and the third one using their case management system. But their case management system at that time was Clio, only to push information into the system. So to give a bit of context on this project, or so everyone's aware, and I'll try to go through this real quick. The Neighborhood Legal Services Program was awarded a Technology Innovation Grant. And as a part of that Technology Innovation Grant was, how can you make Clio a suitable solution for legal services organizations? When we started that project with Neighborhood Legal Services Program, they had one big challenge, and it was, hey, we cannot move entirely to Clio if we don't have an intake system developed. And we don't have an intake system that allows us to do 4 core things. 1, check for financial eligibility of our prospective clients. 2, do financial eligibility for those individuals and run those conflict checks automatically based on the records that have existed in the system. 3rd, we need a way to automatically create adverse parties or related parties on family cases, on divorce cases. How can we do that rather than entering manually every single case every single time, or creating a contact every single time? And the final element was, how can we quickly and automatically push all of that data and at the same time create the tasks that we need to complete from a compliance perspective? So with those 4 challenges, we started to build different iterations. I remember that, again, this solution was not the first one. We tried probably 6 different platforms. Ashley can speak to that. And if someone's interested in that story, I know Ashley has a ton of horror stories of the different iterations that we had to go through. And I remember that at the time we used another legal tech no-code tool that was called Afterpattern, because they had an integration with Clio. We tried Fast2Suite. We tried a bunch of different solutions. And there was a moment, what I call come to Jesus moment, in which my CEO said, look, the only real tool that is going to be able to do all of that, because we had the requirements, we have tried different iterations, was going to be Airtable. I was a bit hesitant at that moment in time, and I told them, I'll give it a shot. Right in time, I guess luck, God saw on me as a PD case, and he said, okay, I'm going to help him out. Airtable came out with what they call interfaces. So you can build apps on top of your bases and make those client-facing. So with that, in the right time, in the right moment, we were able to build this intake system. So this intake system, again, just to give an overview, now allows all of the things that Neighborhood Legal Services programs wanted. So they can run conflict checks automatically, and it would show potential conflicts of interest that they might have on a new applicant. They can run financial eligibility based on federal poverty guidelines or other metrics that can be updated every single year. So that is up to date. The third big item on this intake system is that they can quickly create additional parties, not only adverse parties, they can create children, they can create related parties, and that will automatically be created in their case management system. They don't have to manually create and enter that data. The fourth element is everything that gets collected at intake gets automatically pushed into the case management system. There's no need of re-entering information. And the final thing is that specific request from Ashley that was how can we create those compliance tasks created automatically get also created in their case management system. So I still recall that one of them is like review for opening case file or make sure that you have reviewed the conflict check. All of those tasks are automatically created in their case management system. So the attorney now has to go in and make sure to complete every single task from a compliance perspective. So with that system, when let's say automatically the candidate or the prospective client has been reviewed, now they exist in their case management system and you can do the whole management of the case itself. So that is just one example. And I know David is gonna speak out about other examples, but what I'm saying is the only true limitation with no-code tools and low-code tools is your creativity and imagination. Now, is it easy? Some projects might be easier than others. Building a website for your daughter's birthday might be simpler than building an intake system. Or like my wife asked me to, I needed to build a website for our wedding because she said, hey, we're gonna have guests from all over the world. We need them to give them information about this. Can you build a website? I was not planning on hiring someone to build that website. So again, if you wanna criticize how a wedding website looks, you should probably check mine out. I probably think it's still online. But that's some of the creative solutions the no-code tool gives you. And I'll probably tell all of you, I was always told that once you're an attorney, that's the path that you are now supposed to go on. But no-code tools gives you the flexibility to think outside the box and to build things not only for operational purposes, but also for your clients. So you can build portals, you can build forms, anything that you want, and any probably pain point that you have that you want to build something, probably there's a solution in the no-code or low-code space. But one final consideration is always remember this. Technology by itself is not the solution if you truly do not understand what the core problem is. And at the end of the day, that's what you have to truly understand. And that's why I use Neighborhood Legal Services program as an example, because we were not able to build an intake system without hundreds of hours invested understanding the workflow of an intake, understanding the ins and outs, understanding this worked, this didn't work, and that created a sustainable and successful project using a no-code solution. So with that, I'll give the word back to David. All right.
Actually, it comes to me.
Okay.
So how are these tools being used? You heard some examples with Mauricio. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I, as a no-code tool user, am using things in my work. But I wanted to start by saying that, years ago, if you're familiar with the tool, if this, then that, and, people have moved on from that, although it's still out there and still very useful. So don't discount it because it's an older tool. I adopted Evernote, and I am still an Evernote user and a proud Evernote user, although everyone else has moved on to Notion and Todoist. But, you don't have to go with what's trendy. If you have found something that works, it's okay to stick with it. So that's the point of that. So now when you're thinking, first we have, how do I get started? And there's some things. Number one, you want to identify the problem. In my daily work, I manage lots of forms. We have these forms available for people to sign up for the LSNTAP listserv. So it's really important that I know that someone signed up. But it takes time for me to go and check all those forms. And then I go and check the form and no one signed up. But then maybe I forget about checking that form for a couple of days, and all of a sudden there's 15 people that have been waiting to get on the listserv. And because I failed to check it, they've not been able to benefit from the information that's gone through the system. So that's the thing. What is causing you problems in your daily work? Are there things that you are doing multiple times that perhaps can be automated? So think about that. If you're doing something over and over again, What benefit could you have by finding a solution that will cut the time that it takes to do it? The second step is figuring out what tool you need. And there's lots of tools, and maybe you were hoping that you would come to a session that didn't talk about Gen AI. I'm sorry. We're going to talk about it. Is a great way to find a tool. I put in a search. Hey, I want to find a way to automate knowing that someone has signed up for the form. So I put a search in Gen AI, and it spat out for me 4 or 5 different no-code solutions. And then I went and looked at each of those and found the one that fit for me. And so don't be afraid to try the solutions that it suggests. Most of these no-code apps have free trials. It doesn't cost anything to give them a try. You might not like the interface. You might not like the color of the home page. I mean, whatever. Find the one that works for you and try them out. And so I settled on Zapier for this particular issue. But first, before I did that, well, when I got to Zapier, they have AI right there that can help you code. So you put in what you want to do. I want to be notified of a form submission. And I was thinking, okay, well, I could have it sent to my email. That would be great. Until I started doing that, and I was flooding my email with all these submissions. Not so great. So then I thought, okay, I just created a new problem. I solved the problem not getting notice, but now I'm getting all of these throughout the day, and it's breaking me away from other work. So I thought about it again. What else could I do? It's like, you know what? I use Trello. Is there a way to send that notification to Trello? And Zapier was able to do it. I just typed in, send a notification from Google Form to Trello, and it was able to tell me how to do it. So first, I'm sorry, I didn't change the screen. We have the send an email. So that was a great solution, but it clogged up my inbox. So now I've settled on sending the notification to Trello. And when you set up Trello, it's perfect because you can decide, okay, this is the Trello board I want it to go to. I want it to have a yellow label on it. I want it to give me a due date in 2 days. You can tell the system to do exactly what you want it to do. It's really super. You can also have it include a link to that form sheet. So now I don't have to remember what was that, where do I go to find that form? It's right in my Trello card, makes it really easy. So that was something that took a lot of time out of my day. I've now automated it. It's on my Trello board. I can go there at, I usually do it in the late afternoon, and then I can do all of the cards that have come in within minutes. It's all right there, very easy. So great solution for me. I'm sure you have something in your workflow that would be beneficial to find an automated solution. So we're going to move over to one thing I want to mention is that a lot of these solutions have nonprofit discounts. We've identified the problem, we found a solution, now how do we pay for it? So most things have these nonprofit discount. Airtable is like 50% discount. Many other solutions are available through TechSoup. If you're not using TechSoup, check them out. There are nonprofit discounts, and they help get those discounts for you. It's a one-stop shop for many things. So always look for those ways to afford these things. Another, just while I'm here, Canva, free for nonprofits. So if you're not using Canva for the stuff, check it out. Please get those discounts. If you're still having trouble finding a solution, ask around to other programs. Come to our community forums and say, hey, I've got this problem. What are you doing about it? And quite often we're seeing people find solutions because someone else is doing it. Or they'll hear a story about, hey, you know what we just did? We got this done and it's great. And that puts a seed of an idea in so that you can find the solution that will help your organization. We're going to turn over to David, who's going to we're going to continue the Love Vest for Airtable, and he's going to share some of his work.
Thank you. One other thing I was going to add real quick, if you can't find a discount for nonprofits that these tools offer, email them. I've gotten things for free or even, 75, 80% off. So if you don't see it, there's no shame in nonprofit. So just ask. So yeah, I have the fun part of showing a real world no code example, and it's also 100% free. So yes, I'm also an Airtable groupie as well. So I'm not going to talk about it too much, but the one thing I do like to share just to kind of get people thinking about it, I always tell people it's like Excel on steroids. So if you are deep in Excel, in spreadsheets all the time, annoyed with them, or just feel like they're just not offering you enough, check out Airtable. Once you get into that, then you'll kind of discover this whole new world. So like I said, I'm not going to really get into it. We've talked about Airtable a lot. So I'm going to share how I use Airtable for a recruitment and applicant tracking system. So I did notice my firm, but a lot of legal aids, they don't have applicant tracking systems. Usually the job process is if you see something you like, you have to send an email. And then there's manual processes back and forth. It creates a lot of work on your staff, but it also creates a lot of work on the applicants, the people you're trying to hire. So it really doesn't create a great first impression. So a couple of years ago, I had to hire a digital project manager, and I didn't want to waste a bunch of time. We didn't have time. We were already behind schedule. So instead of having to go through hundreds and hundreds of resumes to see who's actually qualified, I was able to set up Airtable to sort of weed out people based on their qualifications. So I'm only seeing the people who actually are, meet the minimum qualifications. And just so to make it clear, this was my first time using Airtable at this point. So it's not like I've been using it for years or anything like that. The nice thing with Airtable is you don't have to start from scratch. They have a large templates directory. So lucky for me, they already had one called Simple Applicant Tracker. So once I had my account created, I just had to click on Use Template, and it just populates a base for me. Let's see. I think you can go to the next one. So once I had that ready, it's mine, right? So I can make slight changes to fit my need. I added in all those qualifying fields, like how many years of experience. They were required to live in Florida, even though it was remote. So we had people out of state. So right away, those people I could kind of cut out. So once I had all the fields set up, I could create a form using Airtable, which is a great feature, and then you can make that public. So if you've used Microsoft Forms, SurveyMonkey, anything like that, you can easily create a form with Airtable as well. And once you have that, again, very similar to those other tools, you can embed it on a web page, or you can just add the direct link on your website or a job board like LinkedIn or something. So after I have that set up, people can start applying, and once they do, they fill out the form, it automatically populates into my Airtable base. So the nice thing with Airtable is there's a few different views. So you have your master view where you can kind of see everything in there. But like I said, I just want to see the most qualified people, so I can set up filters to set up a separate view, so I just see those handful of people who are qualified, who I actually want to reach out to interview. Again, cutting out as much time as possible because we were very behind schedule at that time. So that is pretty much a very easy way you could use Airtable at your firms if you don't have something like that. I would estimate it probably saved about 20 hours of time, but it only took me half a day, right? It took me 3 or 4 hours to set this up. So there's plenty more you could do with it. Again, I use it for a very basic function, but you could do a lot of other automations and workflows if you wanted to save even more time. So again, I already kind of said there's, the nice thing about it is there's already a bunch of templates on there. The nice thing, so the Airtable team puts out a bunch of templates that I'd say are more, not generic, but more for wider use. So they also have what's called their Airtable universe, where users like us can put on things we've worked on and make them available, right? So that's where you can kind of get down into more niche use cases and find a lot of other things. And as we said, this is all free. So the free version is very robust. You can probably use it for almost all your needs. But if you need something more, there's a 50% discount. So definitely take advantage. Okay, so I'm up to next. Two more. Okay, so I'm going to continue with Airtable, but if you were in the Affinity group yesterday, we talked a little bit about Softer. So Softer is a tool for building no-code apps. So this is actually powered by your data. So I use Airtable as sort of the back end of it, and then think of Softer as a front end. But you don't have to use Airtable. You could use Google Sheets, and there's other database integrations as well. But again, we really like Airtable. So you can there's so many functions, right? You can do make internal business tools, external tools like client portals and websites. So I actually use it to build a job board, which we'll show you here. So A to J Jobs, again, I built this. It's a free job board for access to justice careers, atojjobs.org. Check it out. Again, just like with Airtable, this was my very first time using Softer. So again, like, don't be scared. Like, I haven't used these tools for a long time. Again, the nice thing with Softer and pretty much most no-code tools is you never have to start from scratch. It's never just like, oh, have at it. So I was able to find a job listing website template. Again, click of a button, it populates a template for the website, but then it also creates the base for me in Airtable. I won't get into it just because of time, but since I was talking about the applicant tracking before, they do have an applicant tracking template, so you could use this for your firm's career site if you need one. So yeah, once you click you want to use it, everything connects automatically with Softer and Airtable to create your base. It just uses an API, but and I think it was about 3 steps. It kind of walks you through how to connect it. So again, it's not anything difficult. Just like, it's, again, I'm doing everything in Airtable. So again, I can make any changes I need to make it fit for my needs. And once I'm done with Airtable, I can start building out the website on Softer. So again, the two accounts are already integrated at this point. And with Softer, I'm really just adding the blocks. So if you've used WordPress, Squarespace, Wix, really any sort of website builder, Softer, again, very similar. You won't have any issues with it. So in just a few clicks, you can see on here, just a few clicks, I can pull in the data fields that I want within Airtable, display logos, titles, links to the job postings. The nice thing is, it just pulls in what you want. So I still have a lot of fields within Airtable that are like for my use, people's emails, names, and things like that I don't want to display. So it's not kind of an all or nothing. And then, so again, Airtable populates all the active jobs on there. The other nice thing is, so I can obviously manually add these things in there myself, but it gives employers the options to post through a web form on the website. So everything feeds directly into Airtable. A great thing is all the submissions are automatically marked as in review. So I can review them first and improve them, and within a second, they're live on the website. So the nice thing with all these fields, the website, everything that I've said so far, if you want to make changes, you want to add more fields, you kind of see something later, you want to add just a different filtering option, whatever it might be, nothing breaks, you don't have to rebuild anything, it's all very seamless. So just to kind of round out this side project of mine, because everything's 100% free, 100% no code. I'm also using a MailerLite account for email marketing. So all the subscribe fields on the website feed directly into the MailerLite account, and then people will be automatically signed up for the weekly newsletter. And then for social media, I'm using Buffer. So this is really mostly just a schedule posts because this is just a side job. So so every weekend I can just kind of schedule the post for the entire week. So what's next? Last I'll just say again, so with Softer and a lot of these no-code tools, you never really have to start from scratch. So that's kind of the best part. So always check if they have some sort of templates directory. This is the free version that I'm using, so that's probably good enough for you. But if you want something more, there's a 30% discount for nonprofits as well. And just to kind of sum up all the time and everything that went into this, it probably took me 20 hours over 3 days. But besides paying for the domain, everything was a 100% free, 100% no code. And now I'll pass it back over to Shelly.
And I will say that we fought over who got to talk about Airtable. This panel was my idea, but I very graciously let my co-panelists talk about their Airtable use. But I am going to mention that, if you just love being in Excel, you'll love Airtable. And you get all these pretty colors too. So if you just want to use the free version of Airtable as your glorified Excel spreadsheet, you will find so many more uses once you're in there, and color. So there are lots and lots of resources available to people who are interested in doing some no-code and low-code usage. And many of them, all of these tools and these companies have videos and webinars, and they want you to use their tool. So why not use those resources? Many of them are really great webinars. Airtable has great webinars introducing new products on a quarterly basis, I believe. There's also the community forums that these tools have. So if you can't find an answer on their website, go to their users groups and look up what other people have done in those situations, or post a question, because quite often you'll get a really good solution to what you're trying to do. So use these resources because there's other people out there that want to share their knowledge. All you have to do is ask. The other thing you can do is go to YouTube. There's a YouTube video pretty much for anything these days. So you can go and find YouTube videos that will walk you step by step through how to do a solution. Even though we call it no code, that doesn't mean there's not something to learn about it. I mean, many things are drag and drop, but if you've never done it before, there can be some questions that you have. So go look for these resources. And of course, reach out to LSNTAP. I am more than willing to try and learn about a new tool. I can also connect you with experts who can give you the information that you need. We do have tech assistance that we pay for. It's a limited scope tech assistance, but you're welcome to use that. It's free, why not? So just reach out and find ways to use these resources. We wanted to leave plenty of time for questions because we think that it's going to, that there will be questions about this. And so we want to make sure that use the microphone so that the people that are at the back of the room can hear, but also so the people at home or in their office can hear as well.
All right, I guess it's the first. Hello, thank you for the presentation, fellow Airtable fan here. So thinking about this, my thoughts are, what are some of the things you think about when making, or what sort of things that an organization should start thinking about when deciding, should we do this on our own or should we contract out? Because my fear in thinking about this is like, oh, I'm going to take a month and a half of my time. It's not going to be as good, and we could have done it, contact Mauricio and set it up when he's like, oh God, Ashley, stop emailing me. So I mean, what are some of the things you're thinking about, like practically, when looking at a project? Is it something that is a little too, just as far as efficiency, I guess, if that makes any sense whatsoever?
I think it depends on how many people it affects. So if it's something that I need for me, a no-code tool may be the perfect solution. If it's something that the whole organization needs, that may be something that you want to reach out to an expert, or someone who can help you through that process. I mean, that would be my advice. What?
Yeah, I think I do have three considerations as well. Let's say one could be the magnitude or the extent of the project. The other one is the medium to long-term vision of that project. If it's something that is going to be for a 1-year new grant that has come out, but we don't know the life expectancy of that grant, I don't advise necessarily investing on a contractor for something that is only going to be for a year. Now, if it's going to be something that we see for the foreseeable future now, again, I know financial metrics, someone mentioned yesterday at a different conference, what's the return of investment? I know we attorneys hate math, but sometimes it's worth thinking, okay, look, if I spend 4 hours per month, that means that that's probably be an expense for my legal aid of about this amount of staff hours. So is it worth it? So one is the term of the project. Let's say what's the medium to long term view of that project. The second one is from a what I call internal buying perspective. That means if you have that individual that wants to develop that, if he truly understands and can champion the technology in-house, you don't need an outside vendor. If, let's say, that individual can do that championing for that technology and the need for that technology, I don't think you need an outside vendor. Now, sometimes the outside vendor comes to enhance or, let's say, further your mission and saying, hey, why do we need this technology compared to this other one? Because of this, I have seen some of the security questions in Airtable, so I'll tackle those as well. But that's the second consideration. And the third and final consideration is how scalable and sustainable you need that project to be. If it's something that, again, if it's outside of if it's going to affect other ones, that's one thing. But if it's even a personal project, hey, I need this to be scalable down the road, or I want it to grow. So it's quite different of building something, and it could be even for operational purposes. It could be something that, hey, I'm using this by myself, but tomorrow I might have an additional staff member that will need to learn this. And in maybe 2 years, we'll have 5 team members. So understanding also the scalability of your product and that is, or your solution, that's also gonna impact if you need a vendor or not a vendor. Again, I'm not helping our cause here, but sometimes vendors are not needed. I would say no-code tools give you that empowerment to decide. Now, it also comes with, again, the most sacred and limited resource that we have is time. So it's up to, let's say, that internal discussion and that objective assessment. Because I have had instances, again, also being honest, in which I tell individuals, oh, I'll do this project on my own time. That I have limited hours on a given day, that sometimes I cannot get that done, that I have to even look beyond our own company to do certain developments. So those 3 considerations.
So we have a question from the app, and it's one I can answer. I'm new to hearing about Clio. Is it an alternative to Legal Server? Yes. Clio is a long-term, for the bigger legal tech market, not necessarily the legal aid legal tech market. They are a leader in the field. They do a great conference every year. I'm going to really miss that it's not going to be virtual anymore. But they are an alternative to other case management systems. They're newer in the legal aid market.
Yeah, and one thing to add, they have a booth on the sponsor booth. So if you want to check those, let's say, functionalities that they have created for legal aid, I urge you to check them out. Again, they have now a grant management component. They have changed a bit their dashboard and some reporting functionality. Again, it's up to the programs to decide if it meets their needs, but Clio is showing some of the functionalities that they have.
So we have several questions about the security profile of Airtable. So one is specifically for job applicants submitting sensitive information, and then just a general question about security. Would either of you like to address that?
Do you want to get started, or
you know more about the security.
Okay, so to give this upfront answer, is Airtable secure? Yes, we have done comprehensive research on their security white paper. What are the standards that they comply with? So they are GDPR compliant, they are CCPA compliant, they have international certifications on security. So they use encryption, they use, let's say, all the good practices around data management and data protection. So they have access control, endpoint security. Again, don't take my word for it. Again, as I said, I'm not a seller for Airtable, although I could easily become one. But they do have a security white paper and privacy white paper on their security and trust section on Airtable. So they have basically all the different practices that they apply. That's why we have felt very confident of using that for, let's say, some projects that do require some personal identifiable data. Now, it also becomes that Airtable by itself is not going to solve the other piece, that is policies around data retention. How long are you going to keep that in place? And let's say Airtable is not going to solve that for you. Now it depends on you also making sure that you have those protocols in place about data and how long are you going to hold on to that? Do you do a a sweep of data that you're not using after 5 years. Again, also comes into consideration some professional responsibility and ethical considerations, depending on the state that you are. But yeah, again, pretty is highly secure. I would say from a tech standard perspective, it's probably one of the highest in compliance. So check it out.
We have an audience question. We have an audience question.
I'm reminded of an XKCD comic about the return on investment that you guys might have seen before, but it's essentially, am I going to spend time to learn this and decode it and then debug it and then just not get my time back that I put into it? So that's my concern. One person shop last year, learned Airtable, learned Zapier. It took me like 2 months, but I had to do it over the summer. So that was one of my questions. And it can be a learning curve. Mm-hmm. There's also, I think, in my academic institution, a culture of fear when it comes to adopting and learning these things. So how do you address the culture of fear or the fear of adoption or of just even learning something like what is a record ID? How do you tie that into things? There's just, and it might just be because Vermont's 50 years behind the country, so.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. I mean, for me personally and at my firm and my use, a lot of it is making something for myself or for a team, and then kind of showing it off, and letting them be the champions for whatever was made, and then going up to the top, working with our executive teams to show them and sort of slowly get that buy-in.
Hi. I'd like to speak up for centralized IT here. What we refer to this as shadow IT. And what you're doing when you're enrolling one of these applications is you're extending the boundary of your IT system. If your company, if your organization is controlled, has a cybersecurity policy, if it has any type of certification, ISO, NIST, CMM, whatever policies are outlined by your IT department need to be covered by all these other applications or you will fail your audit. How is the data backed up? How is it recovered? How do you provision IDs? How do you unprovision IDs? It's nice to say that it's encrypted, especially if you are sharing PII. If your client information is being extended beyond your formal IT boundaries, anything that applies to PII, anything that applies to HIPAA, those other companies, maybe OpenTable has those policies in place, but your IT department has to have all that stuff documented or we will fail an audit. That's my wording.
Yeah, and just to add to that comment, let's say with no-code tools, it's also important to do your due diligence. And that's why I mentioned that there are multiple tools. Again, some are more reputable than others. That's why I said there are thousands of no-code tools. If you are just looking for a specific vertical like website builder, you're probably going to have hundreds of different no-code tools. So always, the first thing that let's say my CEO does make me do is go to their security and trust certifications page to see how secure they are. And again, many of them, not all of them, do have that information on their website, see their certifications that they have. And it's important for those tools that you're going to be used to be compatible with your own internal policies. So again, don't take cybersecurity for granted when developing no-code tools. I know excitement can get the best of us sometimes, but always make sure to make your due diligence on that. Again, I know it's annoying, but now with the breaches becoming more often every single day, just make sure that that aligns with your internal policies.
So if you do have a question, please raise your hand so we can get the mic to you. While we're waiting for that, I have one question from the app. So is Bay Area Legal Service still using that Clio integration?
Yep. Neighborhood Legal Services.
Yeah, that one.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, sorry. It was
Yeah,
yours,
different
not-
firm. Yeah.
Sorry.
And did we have any audience questions? All right, so we'll go to the next one on the app. Can you compare Workado and Power Automate? Why might someone use one over the other? Anybody?
Sorry, I don't use those much.
I do use Power Automate. I have not used the other one, to be quite honest. And it depends to the extent of automations that you need. Again, some workflow automations are more robust than others. And some platforms are going to give you more granular control of the type of workflow automations that you need. For instance, I know that I mentioned Zapier and Shelly also mentioned Zapier. but another one that gives me even more granular control that is very secure and from a standard or security standard is very secure is Integromat, or what was now is called Make. So formerly called Integromat, now Make is, think of it as a Zapier replacement and does the same thing as Power Automate, so workflow automations. So again, I cannot say one versus the other. I said this yesterday in the affinity discussion, and I'll always bring it back, is depends on the requirements and depends how comprehensive you can get and how sometimes fancy you want to get. If you want to use one over the other because I have used this before, that's up to you. But also come additional considerations, even as cybersecurity consideration could be that, look, I love this tool, but probably is not in alignment with my policies, or my IT director checked this out and said, look, you're going to use it because X, Y, and Z. So that means that we have to pivot and look for other alternatives. So again, I have not used the second one with Power Automate. I have used it for a few Microsoft projects, but it depends on the requirements. It depends to the extent, depends on the scope of work requirements that you have.
So I'm not seeing any more questions in the audience. We still have two, but we also wanted to have a chance to hear from you and hear how people are using low-code, no-code tools. So if you have a success story or if you have an example that you would like to share, because I personally need to hear how other people are using things so that it sparks something in my mind of, oh, I could use it for that too, or I could use it for something different. So do we have anyone that would like to share something? We have one here.
Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm with the North Carolina Equal Access to Justice Commission. We started using Airtable a few years ago, and we were using it starting out for our driver's license restoration project, where we were using just like basically Google Sheets and Google Docs and all of that before then. But we started using it for that particular project, and then since we had it, we just started, whenever we had a new project, I just would build a new base. But we do also use it for like our financial processes, so we have like reimbursement forms, purchase requisitions, all of that. And I have like emails set up through SendGrid. We do texting to clients. And then recently I also started managing our grants in that. And so we use that. I have like a base set up, and whenever I put in like a deadline, then it sends an email to anybody on the team who actually needs to be involved in the reporting or the application. It also sends an automatic calendar invite, and then I also use Zapier to connect it to Todoist to send us a task. So that's some of the ways that we use it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any other examples that anyone wants to share? Well, while we work the microphone around the room, we still have another question. Do you know of any low-code, no-code, do you know of maybe any other low-code, no-code knowledge base apps?
I have some of them. Again, goes to your preference. It's like now buying those
Took away was
HelloFresh meals that you can get, let's say, the type of diet that you have. So there are multiple suggestions that I have. One of them is Notion. Notion, I have seen it highly used in technology companies as a knowledge management solution.
Enter it in maybe a pilot phase.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something going on. Can everyone hear me now? Yeah? Okay. So Notion is one of those solutions that I usually suggest. On the tech space is highly used, so I recommend checking that out. Another one that is used mostly for technical teams, but still, if it's for internal purposes, you should check it out. It's called Gitbook, Gitbook. Gitbook is another pretty good one. We have used it morely for internal purposes. Now, if you want to have it for external, there's a consideration of accessibility features. It might have some limitations. So again, another consideration that goes into which tool you're using. If you need something that needs accessibility features, you might need something more robust. The third one that I usually suggest is Tango.us that I talked to about yesterday to create documented instructions about workflows or processes. That's another option. So Tango is TANGO.US. I use it all the time for any that has exchanged emails with me that ask me how can I do this. I usually send a link with the instructions using that. So there are multiple options for a knowledge management system in the no-code space. And again, those are a few suggestions. There are even more than the ones that I just mentioned, but just a consideration.
So we didn't get to all questions. We're out of time, so we will try to answer that in the app. I also suggest you reach out to Ellis Intap and we can help you with options. Please make sure if you have questions, we have our contact information here. And please fill out the survey, but I'll put it back to the contact information. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. And thank you at home for joining us.
Thank you.